Now, insecurity is no doubt one of the major challenges facing Nigeria today. Nigerians in the northwestern part of the country can barely sleep with their eyes closed. This is because not a day goes by without attacks by terrorists on their communities. Hundreds of people have been killed and their property destroyed. Different measures have been taken to address the issue, including advising the people to defend themselves. But none of these measures have yielded desired results. Many have now taken to prayers, including the president, who recently expressed hope that God will listen to Nigeria's prayers on insecurity, insisting that his administration has done its best on security and will continue to do more by pursuing policies to deal with terrorism. Joining me now is security consultant Darlington. Umoru. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TV.
Good morning, madam. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
As usual, you're looking radiant this morning.
Thank you.
It's a new year.
It is. Now, the issue of insecurity, again, we have to bring you here to talk to us about this. We saw recently what happened in Katsina, but we saw what happened in Niger State. We see what is going on also.
Even in Zamfara.
In Zamfara. We also see what is going on in Kaduna as well. And the president, I believe is stemming from reports he has gotten, says these are bandits moving from the theater of war, and they are unleashing mayhem on certain states as they move. But then again, he has given marching orders to the military to address this issue robustly. And then again, he says that his administration has done their best. And the question where I want us to begin is, if really we have been doing our best at addressing this matter of insecurity.
Nigeria, yes, true. The military has been at their best, not just doing their best. They've actually been at their best, trying to contain the activities of terrorists and the bandits. Well, they are all terrorists. They've all been branded terrorists now, yes. Particularly of late when bandits were gazetted as terrorists. Don't forget that one of the limitations the Nigerian army, the Nigerian military had, using the area bombardment on particularly the bandits now, with the 829 Super Tucano that was purchased recently.
Yes, it was because they weren't branded as terrorists.
Terrorists, yes, because one of the conditionalities for the sale of the 829 Super Tucano to the Nigerian government was the fact that it must only be deployed to bandits, terrorists, but outside that particularly when you remember that the what do you call them now? Those of them who were writing to the American government condemning the sale of the 829 Tucanos to Nigeria, yes. Arguing, their argument was that the thing was going to be misused. We had that from IPOP. They wrote to the American government demanding that it should be withdrawn, that the 829 Tucano will be misdirected, they use. Now, we also had that from some critics. Now, on the basis of that, although the Nigerian government used some other equipment against the bandits, but the 829 Super Tucano that is specifically meant for that attack was not able to be used. The army is overstretched. Let us accept that fact. Today, there's kidnapping, you bring in the army. Today, there's communal clashes, you bring in the army. Today, there's terrorism, you bring in the army. Today, all kinds of things across the country, and then they are spread. Now, the war is not just against one body. For instance, when I say one body, not just against ISWAP, not just against Boko Haram. You have ISWAP to tackle, you have Boko Haram to tackle, you have the various arms of the bandits now who are now terrorists also to tackle. Now, what is the numerical strength of the military that are going about this defense and trying to conquer terrorism in the country. You have to also look at that. On daily basis, virtually on daily basis, one military man could have been felled. Do you have replacement for him immediately? The answer is absolutely no. And so, if you say they are not doing their best, they are doing their best, but how much result have we been able to achieve? Across the African continent, the Nigerian military is about the best. But do they have the equipment when it comes to doing what they do outside the country? The answer is absolutely no. Do they have the complete...
But we see monies that have been disbursed for the purchase of equipment over the years that we have been fighting this war, as it is termed.
I'm glad you did this. I'm glad you did this. Don't forget, madam, that recently when the new chiefs, these incumbent chiefs now, took over, we got a statement from the NSA. If you recall.
I recall.
Where he talked about having not seen the equipment supposedly to have been purchased with the amount of money given to the outgone chiefs. But what did we get? What did we get thereafter? Shortly after that statement was made, we saw something that was close to a retraction by the same NSA, saying that he had not said what he meant. What was all of that for? What was all of that for? You see, and then there was a statement released recently by a body. What's the name now? Where they look at the amount of money deployed into the purchase of equipment to prosecute this war against insurgents, in the last 20 years. And then the amount was humongous. And then if you want to compare that with the equipment that is on ground that eyes
can see,
then there's a problem. And then in the last 20 years, then you'll be going back to look at it from the administration of Obasanjo up until this day. Because democracy in this phase actually started in 1999. And so 20 years back, you'll be looking at 2001. Who was there in power? It was Obasanjo who was there. And so over time, what have we had? The question is, why are they really not performing the way they do when they perform with international organizations outside this country?
Right.
Because they don't have the right equipment. They go out there, they win medals for you. Here they try their best. Now you see the terrorists with sophisticated equipment tackling, they even go to military bases to tackle the military. That is to tell you that they are confident of the kind of equipment they are taking onto our military. Have we been able to contain them to that extent? Yes, largely the Nigerian military has done well, given the circumstance and the equipment within their disposal for use. So right now, if Mr. President made that statement, he is the president of this country. He gets security reports from the agencies, and then the NSA, and then from the military. But for Mr. President to have made that statement before the last one he made yesterday, it's a little bit, to me, not too encouraging. Not too encouraging to the men in the war front, not too encouraging to those of us who are civilians who want to sleep, believing that the military is out there prosecuting the war. What would prayers and all of that do in terms of defending? Like somebody said the last time, that civilians should defend themselves.
Right.
How would you ask civilians who are not trained? Nigeria is not like some other countries where arms bearing can be done by anybody. Only a few licensed arm bearing, a few persons are bearing arms only for gaming purposes. For gaming purposes. Non-state actors that bear arms are doing so illegally. The state actors are the ones who are constitutionally permitted largely to bear arms well, because they have a constitutional responsibility to do so. But if you begin to limit it, if you want civilians to defend themselves, if you want prayers to help, if you say the government has done enough, it means that you are not dynamic. How can you do your best at this point in time? Your best is yet to come, because you're still working and you're still in office. The terrorists you're fighting are not resting in their oars. On daily basis, they are thinking of how to conquer you, because they fight a guerrilla warfare. They don't just come out. It's not a conventional warfare where you face each other and begin to tackle. They do their surveillance, they do their intel, they work on their targets, and they go all out to hit the target. And so if you have all of that, it meant that all you need as the #1 citizen, as a military officer, is to continue to encourage those of them who are in the field. If you say you have done your best, it means you have rested in your oars. That at this point, this is the best you have been able to give, and this is the best you can give. It's not so. It should be dynamic. It's still ongoing. You are still in power. All of us are looking up to you. You are a military man. You are an intelligence officer. And we know what you can do, what you are capable of doing. Right. You are doing your best. It's good enough, but at least encourage them.
Now, a few things that you have mentioned, which I'd like for us to perhaps look into and for you to expatiate. You mentioned the fact that the military is stretched. Overstretched. And that a majority of those who have failed in terms of the process,
been replaced.
The replacement. Is it so challenging to replace them? That's the first question.
It's not so challenging, but the government is doing that. But the point there is that how regularly is it done? It's usually, in most times, it is done on an annual basis. We're talking about recruitment now.
Right.
Recruitment cannot be done on daily basis. And recruitment into the military or paramilitary is not something you do on every 24 hours. It has its time. But what is the numerical strength of those you bring in at the time you're bringing them in? It's like when you look at the Nigerian police force. Both the activities of the Nigerian police force now is basically being taken over to some extent by the military, who are meant to do certain things.
Defend the territorial integrity of the country.
And then take on terrorists even within the territory.
Right.
Okay? Now, at this point in time, even civil issues like communal clashes, you draft in the military, not the police anymore. What is even the strength, the numerical strength of the Nigerian police as we speak today? If you take the records and statistics, virtually on every 48 hours or thereabout, a policeman is failed.
But recently there was a recruitment process where the spokesperson for the police is saying that a lot of Nigerians are seeming not interested in taking up positions with the police.
You're talking about Mba?
Yes.
That is absolutely not correct. Because the rate of unemployment in this country today gives every unemployed person the opportunity to want to get enrolled in just any job that is available. Talk more of the police. If that is even a challenge, what is the police doing to encourage them to come in? We have a police college. Don't we have a police college?
We do.
Have they cried out to say that they are short of candidates? I saw that statement and I felt, to me, it was not a statement that ought to have been coming from the spokesperson of the police, particularly in the person of Mba, who has been there for years. He has come and come and come. Today is a commissioner in rank. The basic challenge we have is, I think, those of them who are the mouth organs or the spokesperson of some of these bodies are really not doing exactly what they ought to do the way they are supposed to have done them. If you talk about the military, go and check every recruitment of the military. They have more than enough persons enrolling to want to go there to work. There are still many Nigerian youths who want to serve this nation. Are they given the opportunity when they go there beyond the man-no-man issue? when it gets to that level. And most of them being given the opportunity to serve on the basis of merit. If you don't know who know the other man in most cases, even when you are there, sometimes when some of these things are done, you even discover that even before the list is the persons go for recruitment, they already have a list. The senator has his candidate. The House of Representatives has his candidate. The governors have their candidate. The House of Representatives, the state assembly members have their candidates. The politicians have their candidates. Maybe I have my candidate as well.
Right.
At the end of the day, how would you say you don't have enough persons who will come forward for recruitment? Over time, the numerical strength of the Nigerian police has been dangling around one figure. About 35,000.
For over 200 million population.
Then ask on daily basis. Ask this year, they'll give you that same figure. Ask next year, they'll give you that same figure. But on record, statistics will tell you that for every 48 hours, virtually one policeman is out. So how do you make replacement? And then you have many of them who are serving as special police unit protectors.
Escorts.
Yes, to individuals. Rather than, these are the areas where most of these policemen were supposed to fill are what the military are being drafted into as against their primary responsibility. And so
why are we not looking into all of that?
If you ask me, who do I ask? If you ask me, who do I ask? When the last IG came on board, the first thing he did was to say he was withdrawing the SPU.
I recall.
All of them. But what happened at the end of the day? Some of them didn't even go back on their own. We had issues where some senators had problems with the IG. Why? Because the SPUs they have refused to allow them to return. You see, until all hands go on deck to begin to do, everybody needs to do. Look at what happened recently. The issue of the foreign terrorist that was to travel from North Africa through Niger into the country. The DSS did their profiling, they did their job, and then they hand over the segment of the NIS to them. What happened? The thing was butchered. The story went out. The story was leaked. And then when it was leaked, when you have such cases, what happened? Today, as we speak, what has happened? Have you heard that the Comptroller General of the NIS has been invited to question?
Not at all.
We all know that there's infiltration of these persons. Even the former president of this country was declared that his government was infiltrated by the presence of Boko Haram. And so if you have infiltration of all of this body, by now, if it were in other crimes, the Comptroller General of the NIS would have had a case to answer to. Why did that matter leak? You were merely given your own segment to do your own job. Man the borders. This is the registration number of a particular vehicle. This is the color of the vehicle. This is the name of the man to expect. These are the various names he answers. He also carries a diplomatic passport. He also carries a national passport. He's going to work. He's going to have some persons, pick some persons in Niger. He has some persons waiting for him in Nigeria already. Do your own bit. An internal memo that was supposed to be given to the land commanders was leaked. And then it got out. And then the old essence, the man who would have been followed and be arrested or taken out, eventually would have heard of all of that and returned. Go back to re-strategize. These are some of the issues. These are some of the issues I thought Mr. President needed to actually pay better attention to. If the DSS had done its own bit in terms of gathering intel, they didn't just gather intel, they did a good profiling to achieve what the country needed
to achieve.
If one man was to lead a foreign terrorist body into the country, we were not talking about ISWAP, we were no longer talking about Boko Haram. This man is not a part of, from the profiling, is not a part of the bandits. So why so? Why would we now, if you look at small issues like this in terms of intel and surveillance, they give you an idea of the loopholes to be blocked.
Right.
Now, when you have in certain parastatals, when we talk to these people, we talk to them about synergy. Synergy means that you do your bit, then you do your own bit, and then we meet at a point. The DSS did their own bit. They got the NIS its own to do your own bit. Man the borders. This man is coming not within the country. He's coming from another country. Man the borders, follow him up, and then until he will be picked up. That internal memo was leaked, which apparently could have suggested that somebody somewhere deliberately let that memo go out so that those persons can retreat.
They are aware.
So what are we talking about? It's warfares are not just won in firing and gunning down. Intelligence, if you got your intelligence and surveillance right, 50% of the war has been won. Today we got the issue, we talked about the issue of somewhere after Goza, where they said that certain persons, certain policemen, the training institute for the police, that the terrorists went there to pick some, to kidnap some police officers. In that area, in the whole of Goza, because Goza has been at the center of activities in terms of Boko Haram and ISWAP. That's talking about the northeast now, specifically. But the much the government has done in terms of fixing surveillance camera in most of those hills and in most of those areas has been helping out. That is what has a little bit suppressed the activities of the terrorists in that region. Right. Don't forget that the Senate committee chairman for Army is from that region, talking about Ali Ndume, who has also come out now to refute that story, to say that it was all false. Because I think at a certain time, that place has been deserted by police officers and largely been, I think it's largely been taken over by the military. And so his argument is, so where did they get the police officers that were kidnapped, that was reported to have been kidnapped?
Right. You mentioned a lot of things, but one aspect that is key for us to perhaps look into is the aspect of accountability, holding people to account. I don't know why you're smiling, but it is obvious that it is essential. We talked about monies earlier that has been, earmarked for the purchase of equipment, where certain persons came in and said they haven't seen the equipment physically, though monies were released. And then they refuted the claims and all of it, but nobody was held to account. Now, you mentioned the release of information and asked if the comptroller of the NIS was, called to question.
That is even just one.
Now, the aspect of accountability seem to be missing.
It's missing totally, completely, Veronica, completely missing.
And that seems to be injuring or hampering the successes.
It's the biggest part of the problem we have.
Right.
It's the biggest part of the problem because nobody has been called to account or have been held responsible for such areas. I'll take you back. When the Chibok girls were kidnapped, at a time when America was here, when they offered to assist this country, they made surveillance of Sambisa forest, and it got to a point where they said that the whole of that area was going to be gassed up.
Quickly, because our time
what did they find at the end of the day? They discovered that at the time they needed to gas up that area, they found most of the terrorists wearing gas masks, which meant that somebody had leaked the information. But what happened? Now, if you are unable to trace and hold certain persons accountable for the leakage of where America said they cannot trust you, because the information, the area of information, you cannot manage very well. And that is the biggest challenge. If you do all your findings, all your surveillance and intel, and you cannot manage it, you cannot hold it until you execute, it leaks out at a point, then you have not achieved nothing. I think at this point, what Mr. President needs to do is begin to hold some persons accountable and send them to jail where the need arises.
Security consultant Darlington Umoru, we have to leave this conversation now. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
It's my pleasure.